Last week on your favorite cinematic series, A Deadly Vow. The sun cast a warm glow over the Adepoju mansion, but the sense of foreboding from the previous night persisted, settled in. Lisa was nowhere to be found. Tony woke up to find Lisa missing from their suite. He checked their garden hideaway from the previous night, but there was no sign of her. It was Abigail who stumbled upon the horrifying sight. In the garden, nestled among the blooming roses, her wedding gown was pristine and white was now marred with blood. Tony's world shattered as he fell to his knees beside Lisa, his grief pouring out in anguished cries. Detective Akinwale arrived shortly after, his presence commanding a composed amidst the chaos. His suspicion immediately turning to Dede. Dede was brought in for questioning. Rhoda Phillips, meanwhile, appeared composed but anxious. She stood by Dede's side, her hand on his shoulder in a gesture of support. A trusted employee who had risen from humble beginnings. His loyalty to Rhoda was unquestionable, but his motives were murky. The discovery of Lisa's investigation opened a new angle in the case. It suggested that Lisa's death might not be a crime of passion, but a calculated act to silence her. Dede sat in the cold, sterile interrogation room, the walls closing in around him. The stark lightning cast harsh shadows on his weary face, accentuating the lines etched by years of hardship. His hands rough and closed from a lifetime of labor trembled slightly as he clenched them together on the metal table. Across from him, Detective Akinwale observed with a penetrating gaze, the silence stretching between them like a taut wire. "Let's start from the beginning, Dede," Akinwale said, his voice calm but firm. "Tell me everything you remember about last night." Dede took a deep breath, his eyes darting to the one-way mirror on the wall. He licked his dry lips before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. I was just doing my job. I drove Mrs. Phillips here and was waiting outside like usual. I didn't see anything. I didn't." "You didn't what?" Akinwale leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "See anything? Hear anything?" Dede shook his head vigorously. "No, sir. I went to the staff quarters after dropping Mrs. Phillips. I didn't leave until this morning." Akinwale tapped the table thoughtfully. "You didn't find it strange that your handkerchief was found near Lisa Adepoju's body? It has your initials, DP." Dede's eyes widened in genuine surprise. I don't know how that got there. I swear I don't." The detective scrutinized him for a moment longer before standing up. "Stay here," he ordered, before stepping out of the room, leaving Dede to his frantic thoughts. Meanwhile, Tony and Mr. Adepoju were in a separate room, poring over Lisa's documents. The findings were staggering. Lisa had uncovered inconsistencies in the financial records of Adepoju Construction, pointing to embezzlement and illegal contracts. The trail led to several powerful figures, some of whom were guests at the wedding. "This is bigger than we thought," Tony murmured, his voice thick with emotion. He was onto something dangerous. Mr. Adepoju's face was a mask of shock and anger. I had no idea this was happening. She was supposed to be taking over the business. Why didn't she tell me? Tony shook his head, still processing the revelations. She must have been protecting you, trying to handle it on her own. Detective Akinwale entered the room, interrupting their discussion. We found significant evidence that suggests Lisa's investigation into the company's finances may have led to her death. We are looking into all possible connections, including your business rivals. Tony clenched his fists, his grief now mixed with a burning need for justice. Whatever it takes, we have to find who did this. In the mansion, Abigail struggled with her own turmoil. She remembered Lisa confiding in her about a mysterious letter she received weeks earlier. The letter, typed on plain paper with no signature, had warned Lisa to stop digging into the company's finances or face dire consequences. Abigail had dismissed it as a prank, but now it took on a sinister significance. She retrieved the letter from Lisa's room and handed it to the detective. Lisa was scared, Abigail said, her voice trembling. She didn't know who sent this. Akinwale read the letter carefully, noting the veiled threats. We will have this analyzed. This could be a critical piece of evidence. As the investigation deepened, Rhoda Phillips became increasingly agitated. She had always been a formidable woman, but the pressure of the situation was beginning to crack her composed exterior. Her interactions with Dede were scrutinized further, revealing a complicated past. Rhoda's connection to Dede wasn't just professional, it was personal. Years ago, when Tony was a child, Dede had saved his life during a robbery. This act of bravery earned him Rhoda's unwavering loyalty. However, rumors suggest that their relationship had evolved into something more over the years. A bond that transcended employer and employee, possibly complicating Rhoda's motives. Back in the interrogation room, Detective Akinwale resumed his questioning of Dede. Your loyalty to the Phillips family is well known. But we need to understand why you were so close to Mrs. Phillips. Were you protecting her? Dede shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I owe her everything. After what happened with Tony, she took me in, gave me a job. I'll do anything for her. Even commit murder? Akinwale's question hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. Dede's eyes flashed with indignation. No, I would never. I didn't kill Miss Lisa. Akinwale stood up, sensing both fear and sincerity. If you're innocent, Dede, we'll find out. But if you're hiding something, now is the time to come clean. Dede's gaze dropped to the table, his silence more telling than words. The detective left him to stew, his mind already working through the tangled web of relationships and motives. As the day wore on, Tony found himself wandering the mansion, lost in thought. He ended up in the garden where Lisa's body had been found. The once beautiful space now felt tainted. The flowers had fountain stark reminders of his loss. He clenched his fists, a surge of determination rising within him. I'll find who did this, Lisa, he vowed softly. I won't stop until they are brought to justice. Here is Tony standing alone in the garden, the setting sun casting a long shadow. What new secrets would be revealed, and how would the investigation unfold?